Hello, I'm Daniel Stamm. I'm the director of The Last Exorcism.
Hallo, guten Tag, ich bin Eli Roth. I'm the producer of The Last Exorcism.
And we're gonna show you a little clip from our movie.
Gott, was soll das?
Keine Ahnung. Da oben ist jemand. Nell!
Nell?
Ich hab die Schlüssel. Halt durch, Nell! Nell!
We're gonna take you on a little journey through movies that we like or despise now.
Yes. Speaking of like, why don't you show us your favorite director, Daniel, Lars von Trier?
Alright, here my favorite movie of all time, Lars von Trier, Breaking the Waves. Emily Watson, best performance ever. Good stuff. It'll haunt you, it'll depress you. I've seen it 20 times in theaters probably. Every single time, I think this time she'll make it, this time she'll be alright. And she never is, and it depresses me to death. Another great von Trier movie.
Yeah.
And the worst sequel in the world. I don't know what happened. People are always saying he's a sexist, you know, he's a racist. I never thought he was. Then I watched Mandalay, and he seems to be all that, unfortunately. Still a brilliant filmmaker and storyteller.
Yeah.
So that's von Trier.
I know. Antichrist I have not seen, but I heard that it's actually a remake of Hostel 2.
Isn't everything that came out after Hostel?
Well, yeah. When you're cutting off genitals graphically on camera, maybe. I do what they call it porn. Von Trier does that. It winds up in the art section.
Oh.
So there you go. It's the difference between me and Lars, I guess. Meanwhile, where's your Til Schweiger section? Okay, this movie is one of Tarantino's favorite films, and he got a print of it, and we watched it at Babelsberg with the whole crew of Inglourious Basterds, and we loved it. It was the thing that really made Til. He co-wrote it and co-directed it. And it was actually surprisingly touching. I thought it would be like some big shoot 'em up fun action movie, and the whole crew was dying. This is a Tarantino favorite, and subsequently one of my favorites. And so then, of course, all everybody talked about was Keinerhausen. Now this one I have not seen. Zweierkuchen I have not seen yet, but Keinerhausen, I watched this movie because we're working every day in Inglourious Basterds, and I could not believe the amount of oral sex in this film. There are long, long scenes of Til with his head between different women's legs, all for comedic effect. And then I talked to Til, and I was like, Til, this is crazy. This was a rated 12. He goes, I know. Well, first it was a rated 6, but then people started complaining, so we changed it to 12. And I was like, this would be like a 50 in America. You couldn't put this in a movie in America, but I just was so impressed that Til just went for it, and we all passed the DVD around, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that the critics give Til a bad rap, and they say, oh, it's Til Schweiger, and they say terrible things about him, but I loved that Til was making movies that were entertaining and that were movies that he himself would see in the theaters, which is obviously movies of him, having sex with lots of women. But beyond that, it's the type of movie he would see in theaters. So I actually watched all of Til's films. I've not seen Wo ist Fred, although I referenced it all the time. I wanted to get a Wo ist Fred poster. I have a Barefoot crew jacket that I should have wore. But I really like Til. I like Til's movies because they're unpretentious. And I think a lot of directors get caught up in themselves and forget about the audience. And Til always struck me as a guy who thought about the audience first. And that is, I think, the most important thing for a director. So, is this a movie? By the way, you can't really get away with this in America. This would not... Wow. I wanna see if there's a poster for this. because I just want to be able to. I like if this DVD was out in America, it'd be a big seller. I've never seen this movie, but you just like if someone's just talking and really pissing you off, you could just hand them this.
Wolfgang Becker, really quick, was my professor in Ludwigsburg at film school. Wolfgang Becker.
Really?
Yeah. Who made Goodbye Lenin, which is an amazing movie.
Yeah, you know, Goodbye Lenin was why Tarantino cast Daniel Bruhl in Inglourious Basterds.
Incredible. We mainly shouted at each other for some reason. I think we really liked each other, but we had a lot of creative disagreements.
I can't see that happening.
Weird, yeah. And so there was a lot of screaming, but there was love too.
Screaming with love.
Amazing movies. Goodbye Lenin. Das Leben ist eine Baustelle.
Have you heard from him since your movie, The Last Exorcism, opened over $20 million, bigger than the last Tom Cruise movie?
I should send him an email, probably. Great store.
It's really good. This is always my favorite section. Of course, they keep it in the back. It's almost like it's like sort of like a porn room. Frankly, this is my video store. I'm just saying I do a little redecorating. This would be the whole rest of the store that we were just in, and then this room would be all those other movies crammed into here. Peter Jackson, most people know him from Lord of the Rings. A lot of people do not know that he made one of the world's greatest kind of very violent R-rated puppet movies, Meet the Feebles. Have you ever seen this film? It's incredible, and it's a musical. And when people say to me, like, I want to see the most disgusting, weirdest, craziest movie, Feebles is a great litmus test, because if they can handle Meet the Feebles, it means, you know, we can continue dating. And if they can't, it's pretty much over at that point. It's insane. It's like puppets. It's like the Muppets. It's a behind the scenes of a puppet show, and they're like rotting of syphilis and shooting each other and shooting up drugs and ODing. It's a masterpiece. And I think that's why people went to see Lord of the Rings. It's because the fans knew that he had started out with bad taste in Meet the Feebles. Suspiria, I love that you have these on videotape. I'm a big fan of watching movies on videotape. And actually, there are a lot of directors that do that. Tarantino still has a big video collection and will actually make a point to go back and watch his videotapes because he feels like they get neglected. And they were so important at one time, and now they're not anymore. Okay, my favorite, Lucio Fulci. Really one of the most underappreciated directors of all time. Because Fulci was an interesting guy. He started out in spaghetti westerns. He made some really, really incredible political films that were very much against the Catholic Church. Films like Beatrice Cenci and Don't Torture a Duckling. And they were brilliantly done, but the critics got mad and the public got mad at him. And he didn't really work a lot. And then at 50, he reinvented himself and makes this movie that was basically sold as a ripoff of Dawn of the Dead, which was called Zombie in Italy. So then they just called it Zombie 2. So there is no Zombie 1. Literally, it's Zombie 2. And here's released as Voodoo. It's got some of the most incredible, violent special effects. Obviously very different from Last Exorcism. But there's a scene where a splinter goes into a woman's eye that's just endless. It's really one of the greatest gore scenes of all time. And then he kind of lost his mind. Don't watch Zombie 3. Nightmare Concert's kind of a great film because it actually stars Fulci as himself. And this is Fulci's 8½, where he plays a film director making horror movies, and he actually kind of starts just taking scenes from old movies and cannibalizing. It's really sad. He kind of died a broken man at the end of his career, and this was the last film he made before that, and this film very much reflects that. But I would say if you're going to see one film, go for Zombie 2. There's The Grudge. Love Japanese horror. I mean, I know people are fans of The Ring, but I love Ju-On. This was actually made on video first and then remade on film. Really, really creepy. This was such a good example of, it was one of the first the last really scary movie before Paranormal Activity that's set in a house, and it's so simple and so creepy that this is one of the movies I saw I had to watch with the lights on after. Then, only the Japanese do really weird things like Uzumaki. Have you seen this movie?
No.
Literally, the plot of the movie is people become obsessed with spirals. And they, skin themselves into spirals. It's so Japanese that it really wouldn't work in any other language. Because, who would do that? I think it was actually based on a graphic novel where people just start drawing spirals and spirals and then cutting their skin. And then they find them, and the humans have been, skinned and, turned into a spiral. It's really, really strange.
Can I just talk about my 3 favorite horror movies really quick?
Yes.
A young filmmaker that I think showed a lot of promise in his early years, Cabin Fever. And then there's another one here. It's called Hostel. You should check that out. It's the
You get
extended
the tin version, yeah.
The German slogan actually was "Try not to vomit."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what's weird?
Versuch nicht zu kotzen. And then, if you thought you couldn't top that, the brilliance of the man who got his career started with cabin fever went on to make Hostel 2.
You know, I see this as one. It's interesting because I almost have my own little section here. Maybe one day you can have like a little yellow card of me. I don't quite have a shelf yet, but I have like a little corner, like Eli's corner.
This movie actually was directed by someone from my directing class in Los Angeles.
Who? What?
Jonathan Levine, who then went on to make The Whackness.
Oh!
This actually still hasn't been released in
I
the
know.
US.
I wanted to see that.
Because the Weinsteins, Harvey actually came
What
up to him.
happened to it?
Harvey came up to him at Sundance and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I'll give you $4 million right now. Let's not argue about it." And Jonathan said, "Okay." And since then he's sitting on it and it has never been released. It is out in Germany, so go get it. It's a great, great film.
It's Amber Heard, right? Mm-hmm. David Fincher. We love David Fincher.
Fight Club, my second favorite movie of all time.
Really?
Yeah. So smart, so funny, and so deep. There's everything in there. If I had made Fight Club, I think I'd say this is it. I don't need to make another movie. I've said everything there is to say about cinema. Fight Club.
Do you know what's interesting is, before we get to M. Night, Fight Club, which is now, obviously, it was so hated by critics when that movie came out.
In the US. In Europe it was huge. In the US it bombed because of Columbine and all that.
Yeah, people like, it's so crazy to think about that now, why that movie bombed, and it's really held up. What was really cool was, you know, Ambassador was talking to Brad Pitt, and like, we were all kind of, at first sort of nerding out, and then it was Gedeon Burckhard. He was like, "How'd you do that? Come up with that character in 12 Monkeys?" And he was like the first one who broke the ice. Brad was like, "Yeah, you know, I came up with this," and just was so open about it. And they were like, "Oh, tell us about Tyler Durden." Right. So we had long talks about Fight Club. It's brilliant. It's really a masterpiece.
But there isn't a Fincher movie that is not a masterpiece. Maybe except for Benjamin Button. But The Game, most underappreciated of his movies.
The Game, I thought, was...
Don't say it, you're wrong. Watch it again. It's genius.
Panic Room.
Not his best one, still a great movie. Zodiac.
Alien 3.
Incredibly visual movie.
We're not talking about visual movie.
Let's cut this. This is not going...
I love Fincher, but, you know...
Zodiac?
Oh, Zodiac's great. M. Night.
Doesn't need any explanation.
What more to say? Do you know what's amazing is he is the guy that's so successful that, you know, as soon as he had a movie that wasn't at the level of The Sixth Sense,
everyone was waiting.
Everyone was just like, they had the knives out. And, you know, obviously Last Airbender was critically reviled in the US. People loved to beat up on him. And I always thought, look, I always loved his movies. It was a huge influence. And then when he mentioned me in his book, or Hostel in his book about Lady in the Water, I was like, I couldn't believe, I was like, wow, he knows who I am. So, I'm still totally like starstruck by the guy. But here's a guy who just, you know, just sits down with a pen and paper and writes and can just continually churns out
one original story
after another. And it's like, how could you get on the guy about that? Give him a break. Like, I mean, I think he was so successful so early that people love to beat him up, and people say he's 40. Arrogant.
I mean, most people haven't started at 40, you know?
Donnie Darko by Richard Kelly. I've heard people describe this as like the modern Catcher in the Rye. This movie made, I don't know, $500,000 at the box office of the US and barely anything in the cinemas, and then became the #1 DVD in so many countries because teenagers saw it and just watched it over and over and over. So much so that they went back, let Richard Kelly recut it, and release his director's cut theatrically, which is almost pretty much unheard of. But it's just a beautiful, haunting, tragic, incredible film with such a great cast. I mean, this is Seth Rogen's first movie. Rich was a big fan of his from Freaks and Geeks and cast him in the film. And you watch, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal, all these people that got their start from this movie. Patrick Swayze in like the greatest performance he's done. And it still holds up brilliantly. It's really, really, really a masterpiece.
All right, so these were some of our favorite movies.
Yes, I enjoyed the journey with you, Daniel.
I loved it, Eli. Let's do this again real soon.
I think we learned a lot about each other.
Yes,
you can learn a lot about someone by their DVD collection.
Or by the movie they've made.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of the movie you've made,
Last Exorcism, out in theaters September 30th.
Check it out.
Want to know more about it? You can check out moviepilot.de.
Cheers.
Tschüss.